This is the new kit, Tasha's Garden. I wanted to go over a few things before we get to the actual instructions in it. Now, um, these kits, the ones I've been doing lately, are samples for my classes that I will have online. I'm teaching penny red classes online in the fall, or if I'm late like I usually am, it will be next year. And in doing them, I need these samples. Now, this one on purpose has some things that really you shouldn't do. One thing is there are a couple of these tongues that I'm not going to include in, and this is one of them. Uh, if you apply the 10-foot rule, this is what you see first. Um, there are more here like that, but they don't seem to stand out as much as this one. And the reason being, it's the before and after colors that make this stand out. So these will not be in your kit, this color. The other thing that is a bit wrong with this one, if you notice here, they're going this way. Your tongues should all go out like this if you can manage. I mean, it's not that um, particular, it's just that they should be in line and they should be standing straight as you do them. Now, once you get to these smaller circles, it's more difficult to get those standing out straight, but that row is pretty good. There are some in the other rows that are angled the wrong way. So just when there's some too. So I put this together with glue, so I will be able to take these out and redo them when I do my classes, and that's why they are like they are. Um, the kit, it's quite a large kit. I'll have the measurements in the um, on my website when these are kits are for sale. But it is quite a large kit. There are many tongues here. Um, there's it varies depending on how close you put your tongues, but you will receive a lot more tongues than you would need in your kit. You will definitely have some leftovers. The other thing is they are not rounded. You will need to, they're the rectangles, and you will need to cut this round yourself. I have the pattern included, and it's not that difficult. I actually did it by guess. I didn't use a pattern. And with this, you don't need them perfectly round, but they're very easy to cut. So when your kit comes, it will have all of these different colors in stacks in your package. And the kit comes with all of these colors for your tongues. It comes with two, one velvet and one wool for the center. It also comes with your tissue paper pattern, and it comes with something that we're going to go into here, but you're going to need some small pennies in underneath this, so it comes with that. There's no threads, and so that is your kit. Now, let's start going through what you actually do. Now, this is your tissue paper. I didn't have a picture of it before I stitched it on. And also, on your pattern, there's going to be a small circle here because remember, I had the large center and then I adjusted it for the small center. So what you need to do is, and it doesn't include your backing, it's just the wool and the pattern and everything you need for wool and the pattern. You will need to have a backing, and you can tell the size of the backing by the pattern. It would be here to here. It doesn't necessarily need to be wool. It could be cotton. It could be anything. So when you have your tissue paper pattern, you are going to stitch through the tissue paper for your rows, for your placement rows of your tongues. So I would suggest you do that with a contrast thread to your whatever backing you're using. I've been using red here because I have a beige backing. Um, Also, when you stitch it, do not stitch this outside line. The very outside line, and this will be on your pattern, it is the cutting line. So when you do your stitches, I would suggest that you, instead of, and it's just a running stitch, it's just anything basic that you want to do, I would suggest that you make your small stitches on top, your large stitches underneath your tissue. That way it's a lot easier to take your tissue off, because if you have your big stitches here, your tissue is going to get caught and you will just need to pick little pieces of tissue paper out. So first you do your stitches, you pin your pattern on, and the next thing you do is use this outside line and you cut your pattern. And that is going to be the edge of your mat. Now this edge, you can, it's your choice. You can blanket stitch this now if you'd like. I think it's much better to do it after your mat is completed with the tongues, because then you can just sort of stitch through a little bit of your tongue so that it's the outside part of your tongue is attached to your edge. So I would leave this blanket stitch go until the very, very last thing you do. And of course, the very last thing you do is to remove all of these stitching threads that you have in here. Then, of course, you remove your tissue paper, and you can just guide it off a little bit. It helps, and it doesn't leave any um, tissue paper on the end. Now, this is the side that you would use to put your tongues. You've put your tissue paper on the back side, and you have your knots and things for these stitches, but this is what you would use, and you'll notice the center is in there. So these are the placement lines for your tongues. And remember, this is how they come in a rectangle, and you will need to do this little round for them. So you just place your tongues in clockwise. This is going clockwise, one on top of the other, or counterclockwise. It really doesn't matter. You can use one row clockwise, one row counterclockwise. I think they look much better going all one way. It's just going round and round and round until you get to the center. So I would suggest you do it just one way. The tongues are flat against your guideline. See, that one's a little bit out, but that's okay. But they should be on there. And you would need to probably a 1/4 inch overlap, just so that you are stitching one tongue to the other tongue. These tongues are not stitched before you put them on. They're only stitched after you have your entire tongues basted on. And this is more or less like a wool applique rug, because everything is stitched to one another. and your backing is more or less like a lining that you would use on a wool applique rug. Then once your sorry, once your tongues are in the place where you want them, and you'll notice this one is too large and this one is too small, and oh my, gee, I hate that. How do I get rid of that? Anyway, I won't get rid of it. This is a good tech day. You can tell, can't you? Um, your whatever stitch you use, and I've just used a an overlap whip stitch. Um, have your thread the same color as your base because these stitches are staying in place. This is what anchors your rug to your base. So this thread to match your base. Now go through, as you go through these layers, your tongues are going to swoop over this way. They're going to have more of an overlap because as the circle gets smaller, this part becomes smaller. So if you notice, you will need to overlap them that way, and they won't overlap straight. They will overlap on a curve type thing. And it's really very easy. It's very similar to the marriage rug that we did. So you keep adding your circles, your your tongues. Sorry, it's that coffee. It's definitely that coffee today. You will keep adding the rows of tongues by your guidelines, and then basting as you go, and keep adding, and until you get to the small one. And for every row, you're going to have a bit more overlap. Try and keep them pointing out straight. You would probably need to pin those before and then adjust them as you go with pins and then do the basting. And then we come to the very last center row. Now they are very overlapped. You can see how overlapped they are. Just be careful that they come out and that they're not way off centered. And again, you would pin those and you would stitch those to your base. And then what happens is you have quite a gap here because your wool is one on top of the other and it's thick, and you have a place in here where you need to fill in order to put your center on and have it nice so that it doesn't have that hole in there. So I will be sending a couple pennies for you to put in there. They will be included in your bag with your center circle, and that's what this is for. So attach that somehow. You can either attach it with a stitch through to the back, or you can attach it when you stitch uh, your tongues down. But I would anchor that somehow because that's going to be in there. Now, I haven't included thread, and as you know, I don't usually include thread because thread, I like that to be your personal choice because you can change the look of a rug so much just by the stitches and the choice and thickness of the thread. Now, you see with these, one on top of the other, these are stitched one to the other. They do not lift. They are all stitched together. And as far as choosing your thread, as I always say, make sure that your thread um, isn't the same shade as any of your wool because that makes your stitches invisible once it's finished when you stand away from it. This is difficult to do with this rug because it has so many colors. And that is, of course, on purpose because it's a hit and miss rug. And that's what gives it the nice look. There is one shade in here, and it's one of the reds, so you'll know it. It's the lightest red that's in here, and that is what I based my thread on. I wanted something that would show, that would not be invisible stitches, but it would still show, and therefore I knew everything else it would go with. Now, with some it looks pink. It's not pink. So isn't that interesting? It just depends on where it is. Now, you can choose any color that you want, but when you're choosing the color, be mindful that there are a lot of browns, there are a lot of dark colors, there are some blues. So this is this, you can tell. Um, so just be mindful of that when you do it. I've used 3 strands of floss. I don't really think you would want it thinner than that. Um, and be careful that it's not too thick. Now, my age-dyed thread, I think uh, it would probably work in this, but it would be very thick, I think, and it would give the threads would stand out more so than the design and the different colors. With this, it's just a very, um, what would I say? Uh, there's you can see it, but it just makes the colors stand out. That's what I think. But then again, that's absolutely your choice. And you can see how different the thread color is. Of course, you would test it with 3 strands if you're using 3 strands. Always test your colors of your thread with the amount of thread that you're using. If you're using 3 strands, you test 3 strands. 2, 2, 6, 6, whatever. And then again, these are not in the kit. Those just stand out so bad. These are not really good, but not like this. This is just too much. And it's so interesting because to look at this as a piece of wool fabric that's dyed, you would never think that that would be that obvious for the colors. And these I took outside, so your colors will be very much that type. Now you have 2 colors for your center. This is the cotton, I believe, and then you have a velvet, so you can choose. Now, we were discussing putting dates here. This is, I believe it's a 1.5 or 1 3/4, or maybe a 2 inch circle. It's not very large. Uh, so I don't know if there's actually enough room to put a date there. Maybe some initials. Maybe just do a decorative stitch there or something. Um, and that's your choice. Maybe you don't want anything at all. Maybe you just would like it the way it is. And that is the end, I think. What is this? Well, that's in the wrong place. Okay. This is the velvet. So the other one was this was the wool. So the wool is similar to that in the tongues. So that is it. It's really very simple to do. It takes quite a bit of time to cut these tongues. Really, the placement is not that difficult at all. Really, when you hear me talk about it, maybe I make it sound difficult, but it goes very fast. You just have to keep your edges. Whoops. Where are the edges? There. You just have to keep your edges on these rows. And just remember that for every row that you go in, this scoots over here a little bit more, and you just have to make sure to keep them going straight as possible. And that's it, really. It's quite easy to do. It is going to be a lot of stitching when you actually do the top stitching. If I can find that. Where is that? There. It's quite a bit of stitching when you do the top stitching, but it's not nearly as much as if you would stitch all of those and then put something there. And then, of course, you can also do that. If you want to be very decorative, you can put one of those stay stitches here for decoration. You could put a larger one here. There's just so many things you could do with that. And also with this one, uh, just because I used, and I will at some point have this as a pattern uh, when I have my classes, but you could also have this as all the same shade on one row, then the next row the same shade, the next row a different shade, and continue and have different colors of thread on each row. So it's very versatile. I mean, you can do quite a bit with this. Um, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy stitching Tasha's garden. Um, I am going to upload the video and then I am going to put them on my website, oldpennyrugs.com. And there will be some special orders there for my moths that have already requested a kit. So I will have some extras, just a regular that anyone can go in and order it. But please do not purchase those special orders unless you are the moth that I have saved a kit for. So thank you everyone and happy stitching.